On the evening of Saturday, June 21st, 2025, the Hong Kong Police Emergency Hotline received an urgent call. The voice of the woman on the other end was clearly trembling with anxiety. She reported that her 49-year-old sister, a Vietnamese woman who had lived in Hong Kong for many years, had left their apartment in the Prince Edward area of Mong Kok early that morning. But as night fell, there was still no sign of her sister returning home. This was completely abnormal for a mother who always prioritized caring for her family above all else. Initially, the duty officers recorded the information following standard procedures for a typical missing person case. To them, an adult not coming home on time for a few hours might simply be unusual business or minor traffic delays. However, the more carefully they listened to the caller's account, the more the police sensed something was wrong. The missing woman was described as an extremely responsible mother. Throughout the years, she had never left her children waiting without explanation. Every day, no matter how busy work became, she always arranged her schedule to come home on time, prepare dinner, and attend to her children's studies. This sudden disappearance was completely contrary to the character and habits she had developed over many years. The professional instincts of experienced officers urged them not to take this case lightly. Early the next morning, the West Kowloon Regional Police Team officially began their investigation. They started by questioning restaurants, grocery stores, and hair salons that the woman frequently visited around the Prince Edward neighborhood. Simultaneously, they began checking traffic cameras and building CCTV systems to trace the last signs of the missing mother. After 2 days of searching on June 23rd, investigators finally obtained their first lead. They discovered that the woman had boarded a bus with a man at 9:50 a.m. on June 21st. This led them away from the familiar Prince Edward area to follow the mysterious journey of the victim. Investigators pieced together dozens of video segments from different cameras and discovered that the bus had taken both individuals to Castle Peak Road in Chung Sha Wan. A store camera near number 192 captured the scene of both people entering an old apartment building that afternoon. But strangely, there was no footage showing both of them leaving together. Instead, only the man was seen leaving the building alone, carrying very large and heavy black plastic bags. He appeared multiple times, each time carrying a large bag before disappearing around a dark alley corner. Sharp intuition made investigators shudder with fear that those unusually large garbage bags might be the horrific answer to this woman's disappearance, and a murder scenario began forming in their minds. As soon as they recognized the severity of the situation, police immediately shifted the case to criminal investigation. Late on the evening of June 24th, the West Kowloon Major Crime Unit urgently sought an emergency search warrant for the boarding house room, the last place the victim was seen. A duty officer from that evening recalled, when they first heard the report about the suspicious black bags, the atmosphere at headquarters seemed to freeze. Everyone had a clear premonition that they were approaching a horrific crime scene. The boarding house room was located on the third floor of Building 192 Castle Peak Road in Chung Sha Wan, an old apartment building without an elevator, with small shops on the ground floor. The room was rented short-term, covering less than 108 square feet, simply furnished with a folding bed and a few basic living items. The room was empty, but the first thing that made all investigators' blood run cold was the dark reddish-brown stains scattered everywhere. On the walls, on the floor, even on the ceiling, everything showed traces of dried blood. Not just simple blood drops, but splatter patterns as if an extremely violent attack had taken place here. A veteran police officer later shared that this scene looked exactly like an abandoned slaughterhouse. Although no body was found, all signs pointed to a painful truth. A bloody crime had occurred in this small room. The investigation team immediately began documenting every smallest detail. The bloodstains weren't simply pools flowing to the floor. They were splattered in different directions, creating horrific patterns on the walls and ceiling. Forensic experts determined that for blood to reach such heights, the victim must have been brutally attacked. The second thing that caught attention was the pungent smell of bleach that hit investigators' nostrils immediately upon entering the scene, a clear sign that the perpetrator had intended to clean the scene. Upon thorough examination, law enforcement discovered 2 chemical bottles in the bathroom corner, 1 bottle of bleach and 1 bottle of cleaning solution still uncapped. The most important clue was found under the bed, a broken wooden knife handle with the blade missing. This handle still had dried bloodstains, identified as belonging to a cleaver, a sharp tool commonly found in kitchens for processing large pieces of meat. Additionally, forensic experts collected tiny fabric fibers along with scattered black nylon fragments throughout the scene, with material characteristics identical to large-sized garbage bags commonly seen. These horrific clues gradually assembled into a haunting picture of crime. The perpetrator had slaughtered the woman right here, then dismembered the body into small parts, and meticulously erased all traces with chemicals. The killer had stuffed the body parts into large black garbage bags, then quietly transported them elsewhere to dispose of the evidence. Based on information provided by the family, the victim was identified as Luong Tam, 49 years old, commonly called by the intimate name Lisa by close friends. She was born in 1976 in Quang Tri Province, Vietnam. In 1989, when Lisa was only 13 years old, her family emigrated from Vietnam to Hong Kong to settle. Growing up in Hong Kong, Lisa became fluent in Cantonese and became an official Hong Kong citizen. Throughout 36 years away from her homeland, she worked tirelessly to provide for her small family's livelihood. Regarding her personal life, Luong Tam had previously married a Vietnamese man also living in Hong Kong and had 2 children together, an 18-year-old son and a 12-year-old daughter. However, the marriage had ended several years earlier, forcing her to shoulder the role of a single mother, raising 2 children in the Prince Edward area. Despite facing life's difficulties, Lisa was still described by those around her as a devoted mother who always put her children and family first. In neighbors' eyes, she was a friendly woman, always ready to help others. To her 2 children, Lisa was both a strict and loving mother, frequently teaching her children to be compassionate and help those around them. According to her younger sister, Lisa had recently begun a new relationship with a man named Quang, a Hong Kong construction worker who was also raising a 13-year-old daughter alone. Both intended to build a stable future together, so they decided to combine into a large family with a total of 5 members, including Lisa, Quang, and their 3 children. For convenience in their shared life, they had rented an apartment in the Prince Edward area as their new home. The crime scene examination continued through the night from June 24th to 25th, right at the boarding house room. The forensic team used ultraviolet lights to scan every corner, searching for blood traces that might have been erased. Results showed countless tiny blood spots hidden deep in tile cracks, floor joints, and wall corners, clear evidence that although the perpetrator had meticulously cleaned the surfaces, they had missed these small gaps. All collected blood samples were sent for analysis, with results confirming a complete match with the victim's blood type. Simultaneously, fingerprints found on the bleach bottle and broken knife handle were also compared in detail. Results showed that the knife handle not only had the victim's fingerprints, but also another mysterious set of fingerprints whose owner could not yet be identified. Police immediately entered these fingerprints into Hong Kong's criminal database to check for matches with any individuals who had previous criminal records. However, the search results yielded no leads. Simultaneously, police also traced the surveillance camera system on the bus route the victim had used. Fortunately, the bus was equipped with security cameras that recorded the victim boarding with an unfamiliar man at exactly 9:50 a.m. on June 21st. Through the camera footage, this man appeared tall and thin, wearing a mask covering the lower part of his face but still revealing his eyes and forehead area. In one precious captured moment, when this person lowered his mask to drink water, the camera captured a fairly clear frame of the suspect's face. This important photograph was immediately entered into the Immigration Department's facial recognition system for comparison, aiming to search for information about foreign nationals who had previously entered Hong Kong or had been recorded in previous databases. At the same time, police conducted surveys of each apartment in Building 192 Castle Peak Road to collect statements from residents. Most tenants here were migrant workers speaking various languages, but thanks to Vietnamese interpreter assistance, they gathered some noteworthy information. Several residents reported hearing arguments in Vietnamese coming from the suspicious room around noon on June 21st. Following that, In the early afternoon, they heard loud noises and sounds of objects breaking. Then everything fell into complete silence. Since this old apartment building often had noise, no one paid particular attention to this. Some even recounted that when passing by this room late at night, they sensed a distinctive foul smell similar to blood. But seeing the door closed and quiet, they thought someone might be processing poultry for meal preparation. Although these statements weren't very detailed, they completely matched the estimated time frame of the crime, making police even more certain of their analysis. Additionally, through verification with the building owner and broker, police obtained information that this room had been rented by a Vietnamese person from June 20th on a short-term daily contract basis. The renter introduced himself as Ngia without presenting any other identification documents. The landlord said he had paid cash in advance for the entire week. This information further reinforced the hypothesis that the suspect had thorough preparation beforehand, renting the room with the sole purpose of committing the crime and then escaping. After distributing the suspect's sketch, police concentrated all resources on finding the person named Ngia. Through reviewing the immigration management system, they discovered a person named Nguyen Minh Ngia, who had applied for asylum around 2022. He was among more than 15,000 foreigners awaiting asylum review in Hong Kong, a significant number reflecting the strong increase in illegal immigration after the pandemic. People in this situation were issued temporary documents called recognizance papers, helping them avoid immediate deportation, but without the right to work legally. They had to live on meager subsidies of only about 40 Hong Kong dollars per day, forcing many to accept underground work or even participate in illegal activities to survive. Nguyen Minh Ngia, 34 years old, originally from Luc Nam District, Bac Giang Province. During his time living in Vietnam, Ngia did not have any stable occupation. His family circumstances were quite difficult, with parents doing agricultural work and having a total of 4 siblings. What was concerning was that Ngia possessed a record full of stains. In 2019, he had participated in a fight in his hometown that resulted in a young man's death, leading to prosecution by Vietnamese police for murder charges. Prior to this incident, Ngia had also fallen into gambling and become entangled with loan shark networks, even having to flee the locality for several months to avoid creditors. In 2020, knowing he was about to be arrested, Ngia decided to flee to China through border trails in Quang Ninh Province. There, he hid within the Vietnamese community, then paid human trafficking networks to be smuggled to Hong Kong by illegal boat around 2022. Ngia's journey was no different from thousands of other Vietnamese seeking livelihood opportunities in Hong Kong, willing to cross borders illegally and then apply for asylum hoping to stay and find work. To Hong Kong authorities, Ngia was simply one of more than 15,000 people awaiting asylum review, only holding recognizance papers requiring renewal every 2 weeks and strictly prohibited from participating in labor activities. Without legal work, Ngia had to wander doing various underground jobs to make a living, from construction site assistants, dishwashing for PHO restaurants, to participating in illegal football betting. He had multiple conflicts and fights with other compatriots competing for underground labor territories. This unstable lifestyle, combined with his violent past, had turned Ngia into a hidden danger within the Vietnamese community. Several compatriots who had encountered Ngia all described him as crude, hot-tempered, and often boasting about his underworld achievements from his time in Vietnam. He liked being called Brother Ngia, had a prominent eagle tattoo on his arm, and always presented himself as a criminal figure. Notably, the relationship between Ngia and victim Lisa seemed to originate from her compassion and compatriot solidarity spirit toward him. According to friends' accounts, Lisa had once let Ngia stay at her home for several days when he first arrived in Hong Kong, even personally introducing him to dishwashing work at a familiar restaurant. However, his thuggish nature prevented Ngia from maintaining this job long-term. Later, there were rumors that he had taken advantage of Lisa's kindness to borrow money and then deliberately default on debts. Before the tragedy occurred, several close friends had heard Lisa express concerns about being threatened by a compatriot regarding money matters. Although Lisa didn't mention a specific name, everyone could deduce it was Ngia. Because in early June 2025, there was an incident when Ngia, in a drunken state, had sought out Lisa at the PHO restaurant and loudly demanded some amount of money, causing her to panic and quickly avoid him. If there truly existed a debt between the two, this could be the direct motive that drove Ngia to brutally attack the person who had once helped him. Through analyzing records and criminal behavior patterns, experts assessed Nguyen Minh Ngia as belonging to the cold-blooded criminal type with an extremely reckless personality. He had previously taken someone's life in Vietnam and successfully escaped, which may have formed in him a mentality of disregarding the law and belief that he could continue committing crimes and once again escape. Ngia's preparation of a cleaver and bleach showed his terrifying calculation, ready to dismember the victim's body and erase all traces, actions that even many other criminals wouldn't dare perform due to their extremely brutal nature and serious legal consequences. During the investigation, police also carefully considered the possibility that this case involved accomplices or other suspects besides Ngia. Initially, they hypothesized there might be accomplices helping him transport the body, but surveillance camera analysis only recorded Ngia alone moving the black garbage bags. The victim's family also didn't suspect anyone else. The victim's current boyfriend had solid alibi evidence, as he was present at the construction site throughout that entire day. Other social relationships in the victim's life were all verified as clean. Therefore, the circle of suspicion gradually narrowed and focused entirely on Ngia. However, an unexpected detail emerged when police discovered the figure of a young woman appearing beside Ngia in some camera footage after June 21st. This opened the possibility that he might have had a female accomplice helping to conceal his whereabouts and activities. In fact, through the investigation process, police clarified the role of Vi Thi Lu, 25 years old, Ngia's girlfriend, also a Vietnamese citizen during the asylum review waiting period in Hong Kong. Although Lu did not directly participate in Lisa's murder, she was believed to have assisted Ngia in escaping from the scene. With the assessment that he had fled, Hong Kong police issued a citywide manhunt order. They distributed images and detailed information about the suspect to all local police units, while strengthening control measures at airports, ports, and border crossings. However, Ngia seemed to have thorough preparation. He had not purchased airplane or high-speed rail tickets to leave Hong Kong. After many days of checking ports and airports without results, police began suspecting he might have used waterways to escape to Shenzhen or Guangdong provinces in China, from where he could find ways to return to Vietnam. Hong Kong immediately activated a series of international police cooperation. They sent arrest assistance requests to China's Public Security Ministry and Vietnamese police. Meanwhile, they provided information so mainland China could hunt for Ngia if he remained on the mainland. Knowing Ngia had previously committed crimes in Vietnam, Hong Kong police also hoped Vietnam would actively pursue him if he fled there. This multinational cooperation showed the determination of law enforcement agencies not to let the perpetrator escape the legal net. Specifically in Hong Kong, police concentrated resources on the second investigation direction, capturing Vi Thi Lu, the girlfriend who had aided Ngia. Based on tracking mobile phone signals and interrogating acquaintances, they determined Lu was hiding in a boarding house in the Sham Shui Po area. On the night of June 25th, special forces conducted a raid and successfully arrested this woman. At the police station, Lu, in a trembling state, admitted knowing Ngia was involved in the incident and had repeatedly helped him change locations after June 21st, ultimately renting a boat for him to escape to sea on the night of June 23rd. Lu further testified that on the morning of June 23rd, she had accompanied Ngia to the Tsim Sha Tsui coastal area, then witnessed him carrying a bag of luggage onto the boat. Lu explained her behavior's motivation stemmed from both love and fear, both because she loved Ngia and wanted to help, and feared he would harm her if she didn't comply. This testimony helped police somewhat outline Ngia's escape route. They also seized important evidence from Lu, including Ngia's phone containing messages he sent instructing her to erase all traces, along with a postcard bearing the contact address of someone in the Vietnam-China border area. All this evidence was added to the case file, helping strengthen the charges to be prosecuted. Nguyen's involvement of his girlfriend in the escape conspiracy showed his ability to manipulate and ruthlessly, coldly exploit others. With all collected data, the perpetrator's profile emerged as someone both brutal and cunning, showing no remorse or hesitation when committing crimes. This was precisely the type of character police assessed as extremely dangerous to society, requiring urgent capture before he could continue causing other crimes anywhere. As of now, Nguyen Minh Ngia has not been arrested, so no trial has been held for him in Hong Kong. However, legal proceedings have begun for his accomplice, Vi Thi Lu, 25 years old, Ngia's girlfriend. She was charged with aiding criminal escape. On June 27, 2025, Lu was brought to Kowloon City Magistrates Court to hear the indictment. In the brief hearing, the prosecutor announced charges stating that defendant Vi Thi Lu, Vietnamese national, had deliberately assisted Nguyen Minh Ngia in fleeing Hong Kong by sea on June 23rd, while fully knowing this person had committed murder or other serious crimes. Lu stood in the defendant's position, looking tired and dejected. The defendant did not apply for bail, perhaps recognizing the difficulty of approval due to lack of stable residential address and high flight risk. The magistrate also rejected bail possibility, ordering Lu's remand until the next preliminary hearing scheduled for August 2025. At the hearing, Lu only quietly confirmed understanding the indictment content without any additional statements. However, according to a source from the defense lawyer, she expressed intention to cooperate with the investigation process and could play an important witness role if Nguyen Minh Ngia is captured and brought to trial. In that case, Lu's testimony about Ngia's confession to the crime and escape process would become crucial evidence helping clarify many aspects of the case. The maximum sentence for the criminal assistance charge Lu faces could reach up to 15 years imprisonment under Hong Kong law. Meanwhile, for Nguyen Minh Ngia, if caught, he would certainly face murder charges. Although Hong Kong no longer applies the death penalty, the possibility of life imprisonment is entirely feasible. However, it should be noted that if Ngia flees to Vietnam and is arrested there, the trial process would become much more complicated since Hong Kong and Vietnam have no extradition treaty. But if Vietnam captures Ngia, he would first have to bear legal responsibility for crimes committed 5 years ago in Vietnam. From Hong Kong's side, they could send extradition requests or proceed with trial in absentia. However, given the serious nature of the case, both sides would likely find ways to coordinate legally to ensure Ngia cannot escape appropriate punishment. Whatever scenario unfolds, this killer's future can only be life behind cold prison bars. The murder of Luong Tu Tam in Hong Kong is not only a personal tragedy, but also reflects the dark sides of the illegal immigrant community. A single mother's kindness was repaid with horrific brutality, while the perpetrator remains hiding beyond the law's reach. Nguyen Minh Ngia, from a killer fleeing Vietnam, became a murderer in Hong Kong, only to once again escape into darkness. Wherever he is, however long he hides, justice will eventually find him. And that concludes today's case. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you won't miss other thrilling cases. Thank you for following and see you in upcoming videos.